I definitely missed the best part of the game because the rest of the game I found a bit boring. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. I hope you're all good. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, then don't need to worry about this. But if you're watching on YouTube, you'll probably notice that it looks a bit empty around me. And also the quality is slightly different because basically, long story short, I've had a bit of a mare this morning. Not really sure why I'm saying this, but just a bit of BTS. But my camera isn't working, couldn't find a memory stick. So it's just all going off. So I've decided to use my phone. So yeah, slightly different. But we'll see how it turns out. Because right now it's on like a 0.5 setting. So it could look really weird, but we'll see. Anyways, that is just for the visual purposes. But you know what? It's been a mixed week for Arsenal, and let's just dive straight into Arsenal because yeah, no one really cares about the setting of what this looks like. They just want to hear the information, hopefully anyways. And yeah, when I say it's been a mixed week, the men's, it's been a good week. The women, not so much. And that is because of pretty much purely based down to the results. But before I get into all the results and all the games and all my learnings, takeaways, and look ahead to next week of fixtures, I thought I'd do the warm-up poll on something more intricate. I feel like that's probably the right word. I want to look at that penalty. That wasn't a penalty, but should it have been a penalty? That's basically my question. If you don't know, Newcastle obviously hosted Arsenal in their Premier League fixture this week. And basically, there was a moment where a penalty was overturned that was awarded to Gyokeres. Let me just break down what happened if you're not aware. So Victor Gyokeres broke through the centre in the 15th minute and went to the ground after skipping past the Newcastle United goalkeeper, Nick Pope. And basically on the way through, Nick Pope sort of clipped Gyokeres' foot, so then he fell, which is kind of being argued that it stopped a goal scoring opportunity, but VAR basically overturned it because they said that Pope got a touch to it just before. I mean, I've watched back the video many, many times, and I feel like you guys probably have as well, because I'm assuming most of you lot are Arsenal fans, or if you're not, you probably hate watching, so you've probably watched it just to see the vibe. So basically, I just put out the question, kind of a weird referee sort of based question, but I thought it was good to ask something different, because to be fair, I don't want to be asking, should we be winning the title right now, or are we still in the title race? Because for the women, it's only game week 4. For the men, it's game week 6, 7? So we're still so early on in the season that, yes, the leagues are shaping, but I don't think we can really decide whether it's a title race, like whether we've lost it or not. So yeah, basically, should Gyokeres have got that penalty awarded to him? That was the poll question. 90% of you said yes, 10% of you said no. Once again, I'm going to have to agree with the majority that 90%, I think he should have got that pen. When I looked back, I've watched it so many times, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I've watched it so many times and I'm seeing so many different views, and even neutrals are saying it should have been a pen. I've spoken to some Newcastle United fans and they're like, yeah, it probably should have been a pen. Don't get me wrong, there were other moments in the game where Gabriel, it looked like he handballed it, but because it came off his shin and hit his arm, the referees were like, no, so obviously that wasn't a handball. And also, it looks like such an unnatural position. Like when I saw the photo and Gabriel had his hand up, I was like, that's so unnatural. But when you see the play of, if you're diving down, it is a natural position for your arm to actually go up. And I know a lot of neutrals agree with that. Also later on in the game, there was a handball that basically, should have been a handball on Bruno. So I think there was so many questionable referee decisions. And basically, if we didn't end up winning this game, I feel like there would be so much more outrage. But I just think there's just an inconsistency with VAR, with the refereeing, and the fact that you're giving penalties and then it's being disallowed. It's basically losing our trust in the referee on the pitch. I feel like there's a big debate around VAR that you could get into, and refereeing as a whole. I'm just thankful that it didn't affect the result. But before I carry on waffling about that, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, whether you think that should have been a penalty or not. And yeah, then I'll go into more detail about the actual game, as well as obviously the 2 other games that Arsenal played this week. So let's get straight into the matches. Okay, so we're going to start on a high, go to a bit of a low, finish on a high. It's basically like, you know, when you're trying to give someone criticism or you're not happy with something and you use the sandwich effect, where you start with positive, you're like, oh, I love this, but I think this could be improved, but overall, this is really good. And you sandwich it. I feel like that's basically what this podcast episode is going to be, because, yeah, it's a win, a draw, and a win. We're going to start with the Port Vale 0, Arsenal 2. My prediction was spot on for this somehow. Have no idea how, because it really could have gone anywhere, because this is obviously the Carabao Cup and we won it, so we're progressing to the last 16. And I think our next game, I'm pretty sure it's against Brighton. So obviously that's interesting that we've been thrown into a bigger game from Port Vale, which not too hard, but that's the other thing with my prediction. I sort of was like, it could either go either way, but it depends what starting 11 we've got, what's happening. And I do feel like, yeah, there are a few good things to take away from this game. It was going to be a win. It had to be a win for us. And it's good because I do feel like we could take the Carabao Cup seriously. So I feel like this was the first sort of insight into, can we actually do that? So the first thing I took away from this game is that Eze excels in central positions. I mean, he's got his first goal for Arsenal right now, which, let it all work out, is the theme that has been playing so far this season when he is stepping on the pitch, obviously previously playing for Arsenal in the academy as a young boy, and now the narrative is writing itself for Eze. It's so good to see him get on that score sheet, and he started off as that left number 8, and you can just tell that in those central positions he is so good. So it's good that Arteta has experimented with him in other positions, but it also is great that when we have players out, he can experiment further and put him in that middle spot. And I feel like now in those bigger games, I want to see Eze in that central space because he does perform, and yeah, not much else I can say on him apart from I'm very, very impressed. Another takeaway is that our subs aren't just subs. They're not just substitutes coming on the pitch. Our subs are game changers. And by that, I mean that they literally come on and make that difference. We've got Trossard, we've got Martinelli. They're coming on and they're scoring goals. And the final takeaway from this game was that Max Dallman has obviously broken another record. He's the youngest Arsenal player to play in the Carabao Cup to represent us. And I think it's just really nice to see Arteta putting that trust in him in a game that maybe on paper, yeah, it wasn't seen as big of a deal. I mean, I obviously said we'd have to win no matter what, because if you look at our team compared to their team, but it's just good that he's getting that game time when he can. I think it's really interesting comparing it to what Slegers has done with Katie Reid, giving that trust to her a bit last season, but now she's starting those games. I'm not saying Max Dallman is going to start anytime soon in those bigger games the same way that Katie Reid is, because obviously Katie Reid is 18, which is more how Miles Lewis-Skelly is starting because they're older teenagers rather than obviously on the younger scale of being 15. But I just think it's great that Arteta is trusting him. And as he should. He's proved why he should be trusted. His pass completion, the creativity, how he's opening up. And you've seen in interviews, I don't know if you guys have seen on socials, how Rice has spoken about Max Dallman coming into the changing room of the first team and just being confident. And he was like, he never would have been like that at West Ham. So I think it's just really, really good to see that he's got that confidence both on the pitch but off the pitch, and it's just really great to see how he's already growing. I mean, Rice did mention Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Waneri and how they've already grown in the last year of having that first team experience. So I'm excited to see what happens with Max Dallman. Obviously don't want to put too much pressure on his shoulders because I know that a lot of youngsters get a lot of pressure when they are excelling at such a young age, but it's great to see that he's being trusted in these maybe smaller games on paper. So yeah, a great first game of the week, which obviously happened as soon as I posted my episode last week. Moving on to the WSL, this game, there's not really a lot of good things to say about this game if I'm being honest. It started off great and then the intensity dropped, which obviously the game I'm talking about is in the WSL. It was Arsenal 1, Aston Villa 1. It was a draw, and I don't know why. This is our second game we've drawn this season, and alarm bells are already going off a little bit. Slegers even said in her post-match press conference that they need to change something and it's got to happen quick because we're playing City, which obviously I'll get onto in my predictions. But there's big games coming up, so we've got to switch on and change something quick, keep up that intensity. I don't really know what. I predict this game to be a 3-1 win, just looking at my notes now. And it is humbling that it ended up being a draw. I went to the Emirates with my friend Jazz, and because of TFL, because the trains, the tubes, buses, they just didn't line up, I ended up getting there 15 minutes into the game, so I ended up missing Frida's goal. I ended up missing the good intensity, the good work from Arsenal, so I watched it back on highlights, and I definitely missed the best part of the game because the rest of the game I found a bit boring. So here's a few takeaways from it, trying to be positive, but also realistic, because it is disappointing that we drew this week. We shouldn't have drawn again. So we're just making it harder for ourselves, and we're making those Chelsea fans scream even louder and be even more confident, whilst we're sort of just sitting back, holding on to that Champions League trophy, which, don't get me wrong, I will happily mention all the time, but how long can we hold on to that for when you need consistency to win a league? And I just feel like we're lacking that consistency, that consistent winning of always getting it over the line. So my takeaways before I get too ranty. The first one is the intensity dropped after about 20 minutes. It was great before those 20 minutes. You could see the through balls from Frida, Mariona. It was great that Slegers mixed up the starting 11 by starting Frida Mornan instead of starting Beth Mead, which she normally has done, or even Ford and Kelly were off, which I thought was really interesting. But completely worked in the first 20, and then suddenly something just dropped, the intensity. There weren't even any subs made, nothing like that. The intensity just dropped, and then suddenly we just sat back a bit. But then Villa kept pushing, and obviously eventually they got their goal. And I think that is going on to my second point. We weren't hungry enough. We need to be more hungry. I think we just need more hunger in general. Maybe it comes through rotations, because if we brought on certain players like Kyra Cooney-Cross, she could bring that fresh energy, bring that hunger for Kim Little. Even in the defensive unit, I've mentioned a few times before, our centre-back duo. I mean, Steph Catley obviously got in the top 30 of the Ballon d'Or, so she has proven to be great out of position. But there's just something about her, you can just tell that for Steph Catley, it's not her natural position. So I think, why aren't we bringing on a Laia Cadena? Why aren't we bringing on a Lotte Wieber-Moy, who for them, that is their main position? And I don't know if that would bring some fresh energy, some fresh hunger. I'm not really sure, but I just feel like, we just were lacking a bit, maybe of rotations in the defensive and midfield sections of the pitch. Obviously attacking, Slegers knows what she's doing with those attacking players, but they just didn't seem to want it as much as they should, in my opinion. We show up in those big games, don't get me wrong, but in these games that maybe aren't seen as big on the pitch, that's where you can really lose the league. And we're 4 weeks in. I'm not saying we've lost the league, but I'm saying we're trailing behind. We're even behind Spurs, which is really humbling for the first time since October 2024. So we're trailing behind. I don't want us to be in this position again. So if we get another draw this week, I'm going to be gutted, because it just shows that we don't want it as much. And then we're going to have to try and get silverware elsewhere, which will make our league form drop even more. And we need to be champions of England. We're champions of Europe. It's amazing to say, but we need to be champions of England. We need to have that consistency, and we have the players to do that. So I'm still honestly a bit baffled. If you guys have any ideas of why we're not performing as well as we should be and why that intensity drops, please let me know, because I'm actually really stuck, because I feel like I can think of a few minor things, but I can't think of like one or two major things as to why it's not really going our way. And we've seen it for a couple weeks now, basically. Even actually in the first game, we conceded, and in the second game, we conceded first, and then we let them score. It's just like, how come we can't last a full 90 at top intensity, or even top intensity, get those goals when you're at that high, as many as you can, and then you can drop a bit the same way that Chelsea does. Obviously, it's a big blueprint to be copying, but, they're doing very well at it, and they're very consistent, and they always find that win, which is frustrating, obviously, when you're not on their side. And the final point from this game, it's actually kind of a positive one. Katie Reid has got to stay a centre-back, even when Leah Williamson is back. And this is my theory. I've been speaking to a few Arsenal fans, and I reckon if you have Leah Williamson next to Katie Reid, that is a perfect, strong centre-back duo. I think it's interesting to see how Katie Reid can drive with the ball, but she's also great at pinging it, which is sort of similar to how Leah Williamson works. So I reckon if they find a routine of one of them can push up whilst the other one drops back, when Leah is back, that is the question. So I think for now, obviously, it's working well with Katie Reid, but I just feel like maybe we could experiment Katie Reid with Lotte Wieber-Moy. I'd like to see that duo at the back at some point. Obviously, I'll get into it in the predictions, but it'll be interesting to see how she comes up against City, because at just 18 years old, she's played in the first 4 games of the WSL this season, obviously. And the first 2 games, I thought, they were maybe slightly easier on paper, but in these last couple games where they've been tough, the press has been so high from the opponents. It's been really good to see her holding her own, changing play. She almost is moving like a Gabrielle of the men's side, where she's able to just take the ball and then run with it a little bit, but pass it out. But she's just very solid and she knows when to put her foot in and when not to. And she seems calm. First couple of games a little bit nervous, whereas now I feel like she's ready to take on that City. So I can't wait to look ahead to that game. But yeah, overall, just a little bit disappointed with that. I really thought it wasn't going to be our weekend as well for Arsenal as a whole, because Newcastle ended up going 1-0 up and I was like, right, that's it. But luckily it ended up being Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2. I did predict it to be Arsenal 4, Newcastle 1, because I was a little bit just like, yeah, why not? Like, I feel like once the floodgates open, we can keep scoring and scoring and scoring. Didn't quite happen like that, but this is such an important win for us. No matter what, we got those 3 points. Obviously, I mentioned at the start, was it a penalty? Was it not? No matter what you think, we got those 3 points on the road, which is pretty tough to do. And there were so many people chatting saying, oh yeah, Arsenal are out of the title race already, because everyone thought Liverpool were going to win this weekend and Newcastle would win, or Newcastle would draw at least. And I'm just so happy that Newcastle obviously ended up losing 2-1 to Arsenal, but Palace also ended up winning 2-1 to Liverpool, which means that we're only 2 points behind Liverpool. The title race is still on. I don't want anyone ruling us out at all, because we've still got time. It's early days. So I guess, yeah, that is my first point. The title race is not over yet. I hate that people are already assuming it, but it is good. It just makes us more hungry. And these performances, there seems to be a change. We seem to want it. We have that hunger. The men's side have that hunger. So it's great to see. And my second point is about Rice. You know what? I feel like Rice is the heartbeat of Arsenal right now. He seems to be in the middle of all the action. Exactly where you want him to be. I think as well, having Zubimendi behind him, he's got that freedom. In a game like this, we need to be a bit more defensive, because we know that Newcastle do have a good counter-attack, and when they're on that attack, you need to make sure a bit more compact. So it's great to see that he can slot in as a CDM, and we've got so much strength. But then he can also move up and then move next to Eze, and that's just great to see, because then he can go up, take those corners, make those through balls. We know he is so good at both positions. We saw at West Ham he was more of a CDM. As soon as he joined Arsenal, he became a CDM and then transitioned up to a centre mid. But it's good that he can sort of go back and forth. Like, I think he's better when he's in that 8 role. Don't get me wrong. But when he drops back to that 6 in that CDM position, he is so good. But you can just tell there's more freedom when he can flow in between. So very, very happy with that. And the final point might be a bit weird. I know there's always a lot of chat about strikers, because there's always that striker bias of, I don't know, should there... Like, even actually looking at the Ballon d'Or, a few of you guys messaged me saying, like, what about the defenders? What about Steph Catley? What about Emily Fox? Or even for the men's, you could look at some of the defenders. I feel like football is very much an attacker's sport. It's very much about the goal scorers and everything like that, and we always focus on that, and I hate that my final point is still focusing on that. But I have to mention Gyokeres, because he might not be on the score sheet, but I have seen a massive improvement, and I'm not the only one. I know a lot of other Arsenal fans have seen a massive improvement of how he's able to hold up play. It's a completely different league to what he's used to, and I feel like he is slowly adjusting. I think in my second week of the Premier League, so go back probably like 3-4 episodes, I was like, oh, how long do we give Gyokeres to get used to this dynamic? And I think, you know what? In October, I reckon he's going to be ready. It's now September. We've got a bit of an international break. Coming out of that, we need to see him getting goals like there's no tomorrow. But for now, it's great to see his hold-up play improving. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens next. Obviously, I think he should have got a penalty, because I do feel like it stops a goal-scoring opportunity. He could have taken out his foot and struck, but obviously Pope took him out, basically. But yeah, I'll let you have your debate in the comments below. But yeah, that was basically a reflection of the 3 games. Overall, men did really well, women not so much, but there's always positives you can take and always improvements for both sides. So yeah, let's see if they can improve ahead of the 3 games we've got. It's so busy always. We've got 3 games to reflect on and 3 games to look ahead to. So let's look ahead to the next 3 games now. Okay, I can't believe we're already at the predictions part of this episode. I say I can't believe we're already there when I think I actually waffled for about 15 minutes in that last section about the games, but I just feel like there's so much to chat about and I don't want to restrict myself, so I just waffle forever. I do keep the predictions part fairly short, because I think ultimately it is so hard to predict, especially when there's so many different games going on. It's hard to know what players are going to be starting for each, but I can give as much of an educated guess as I can based on past games and performances currently. So yeah, let's get into the predictions. So we've got 3 games. We've got 2 for the men, 1 Champions League, 1 Premier League, and then we've got 1 WSL game. The men do actually go on their international break at the end of this week, so obviously next week's episode there will be no predictions for the men's side. It will just be for the women's, and then I think the women's go towards the end of October anyways, so we've always got games to talk about, which is quite nice because even when they're out playing for country, you can still support Arsenal, just go to the other side, depending on whatever side that is. But focusing on the men, so tomorrow night we have a Champions League fixture again, 8 p.m. It is a home game. It is Arsenal versus Olympiacos. And you know what? I actually really like this Champions League format because I feel like you could still draw or you could lose a couple games. And because it's based in like a league format, you're still likely to be able to get through depending on how other results go. Don't get me wrong, like if you lost all of them, obviously not, and if you draw all of them, probably not as likely. I'm not expecting us to draw or lose, so I don't know why I've actually started off on that negative foot, but it is just more of an unpredictable way, and it's quite nice because you play a variety of teams. The women's side are now doing it as well, which is really nice because then it's not like you've got a home leg and an away leg against the same team. So obviously you have that later on down the line, but just for like the league table phase right now, Arsenal have obviously had good form, as I've mentioned, recently, and I feel like we can continue it. I do feel like we might see a mix-up of the midfield 3. Zubimendi, Ødegaard and Marina is the midfield 3 I'm going for. I think Rice deserves a break and Eze. But don't get me wrong, if they come on as those game changers, that would be amazing to see those rotations happening on later in the game. It sort of just depends where the game's going. I think we can win 2-0, don't get me wrong. I feel like in terms of this week, we need to keep up our Premier League. Actually, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, what do we want to prioritise for this week? I feel like this week, obviously Champions League, we want to be getting those points, but I think we can do it. We can't get complacent with either. And it's not the hardest Premier League fixture. I'll get onto it in a bit. But I do feel like we'll be probably more focused because we want to keep the close gap behind Liverpool, because like we saw at the weekend, Liverpool can drop points at any moment, so we need to be there ready to overtake them, already just right behind them. So I feel like we need to definitely prioritise the Premier League for this week. But obviously Champions League is important because of the format of it. We have a little bit more flexibility, but we definitely shouldn't be losing this game. So yeah, ultimately I'm going to go for a 2-0. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Moving on to the weekend, so on Saturday the 4th of October, oh my god, we're already getting into October, crazy, my birthday month as well, so we love October. 12 p.m. is the kickoff. It's up in Manchester because Arsenal are facing Man City, which, you know what, can Arsenal catch a break right now? Because I feel like we're just getting really big games already, and the next one will be Chelsea, which is in November. So I feel like we've had very big games. Obviously we had the United game. Villa shouldn't have been a big game, but we've got United, City and Chelsea all in the space of basically like a month, like 6 weeks roughly, which are quite big. I feel like this is a crucial game because if Arsenal was serious about the league, we need to get the 3 points this game. There's no question about it. So yeah, basically if we prove that we're in that title race, which we're obviously dropping a lot back, we need to win this because it will even obviously push City further down and we can overtake them and everything like that. So I do feel confident that we can do that. Saying that, City have come off the back of 2 very big wins against Spurs, against London City Lionesses. We know they can score, but also we can score. I think Arsenal have forgotten for some reason the last 2 games that we can actually score, and I think it's having those chances. I think Olivia Smith is going to play a key role in this game because City have a strong defence with Kirsten Kasparov, but their defence isn't as strong if we take those chances from further out, and I feel like that's where Olivia Smith can come in clutch. I think also just our rotation of the attacking players is so good because for City, I don't think they have enough players to compete on multiple fronts. For them, they're not in the Champions League though, so the league is going to be their main focus. So I feel like they have the players, and for them, if Shaw and Miedema stay injury-free this whole season, that is quite an intimidating front two to have because obviously Miedema plays just behind. So I think it would be interesting to see especially how Katie Reid comes up against those 2 players. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm going to go with a 3-2 win. It is away from home. I feel like there should be a lot of goals because both teams are capable of scoring lots of goals. I think if we go with that hunger, we'll probably be able to tell in the first 30 minutes to see if the intensity drops off at all. If we can stay hungry, we should be able to get that win. Realistically, maybe a draw, but I'm going to stick with the win just because I want to manifest it as well. Like, we need this win. This win is probably the most important one so far because it's making a statement. And Arsenal seem to show up, as I mentioned earlier. We seem to show up in big games, so hopefully that happens. Final game of the weekend is also on Saturday, 4th of October. It's amazing when the games, honestly, that's so sarcastic because it's so frustrating when the games basically clash. This game is at 3 p.m, so I feel like you can catch the start of it. Obviously, you won't be able to be at both because the Arsenal women's game is in Manchester and the Arsenal men's game is obviously in the Emirates in London. It's against West Ham, Premier League, home game. I feel like this is an interesting game. I'm going to predict it to be a 3-1 win, but one reason why I say there's not going to be a clean sheet is because I feel like there's a complete change in West Ham right now. There's a complete change at that club, and that is because Potter's obviously been sacked because he wasn't right for them. You could just tell. The amount of times everyone was like, oh, is he going to do something? Is he? And he just didn't. You could just tell that everyone at West Ham, whether it's the players, the fans, everyone was just getting very frustrated. Nuno has come in and they've drawn against Everton away from home on the road, which I think is impressive in itself. And it just seems like there's a change. So they're still fairly new with Nuno's reign at West Ham. So I think it is a little bit unpredictable. So for that reason, I don't think we can keep a clean sheet, but because it is at home, because I'm hoping we start the week off with a win tomorrow night, obviously in the Champions League, and because we've had good form in the last week anyways, I feel like we should be good. I feel like we should hopefully be able to get that win. And yeah, I feel like also we'd probably see the likes of Eze in this game. I want to see Rice starting this game, especially Rice because obviously it is his former club. It is like the Rice derby, basically, when he goes back to West Ham. And West Ham, there always seems to be, like, it seems to be mixed results over the last few years. I feel like sometimes they're amazing, sometimes we're amazing. Lots of goals in it. So I'm hoping it can be a 3-1. I feel like there should be a lot of goals. So that's 4 goals. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this episode. I think we're on episode 45 of the podcast. So I really appreciate any of you who have been here from episode 1. It means a lot. And if you have and you haven't already, please subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, please follow. Because it means a lot just to build this community. I feel like I say this every week, but I do really appreciate it. And if you haven't watched from the beginning, I appreciate you joining me now. Whenever you've joined me, whatever episode it is, if this is your first one, I hope this has been a good little taster of what happens every week. There's always a lot of Arsenal things to talk about, whether it's men's or women's. Things on the pitch, things off the pitch. There's always a lot to talk about. And I do my best to basically address as much of it as I can in less than 30 minutes because I don't want to bore you guys with my waffling too much. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, please give me a thumbs up. Comment down below. I've asked you guys so many questions throughout this episode, so there's so much for you guys to comment on. And I'd love to hear your view because obviously I am just one person. I have just my views. I've obviously taken in consideration of other people's views and stuff. But it would be great to hear from you, as always. I appreciate all the comments as well, whether that's on these YouTube videos, on Instagram, in my DMs, answering poll questions or anything like that. I appreciate all the interactions. So yeah, that is all from me. I will have a Arsenal Humans Fan Zone episode coming out end of this week, which I'm very, very excited about. Because I just love hearing from other Arsenal fans. So when I'm saying I want to hear you guys comment, it's because I love seeing people's connections to Arsenal, people's opinions on Arsenal, but I especially love doing the fan zone because you hear a whole story, because it is obviously that more long form journalism. It's about an hour long, those episodes. So yeah, that's coming out end of the week, and obviously we'll be reflecting on all the games I've predicted in this episode. We'll be reflecting on them next Tuesday. So yeah, I'll see you next week.